Hey there, Wargamers, Justin our Paint here, and today we're not going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this counters pack. I'd like to welcome you guys back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in today. If you are new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please smash Alpha Strike that like and subscribe button like you're trying to focus all that enemy fire into, not enemy fire, your fire into the enemy's face, but instead, let's take that energy and focus it into helping the channel grow. If you are returning here, thank you for being an awesome Lance mate, Star mate, Sibco, Sibkin. Thank you for being all around awesome supporter, and I welcome you guys back. That said, today we're going to do an unboxing here to check out the Alpha Strike counters pack, and got the weird little ASMR packaging noise here, but we'll dig into this. I picked this up as soon as it went up on the CGL website for purchase, so I'd have it quickly, so I paid full MSRP. You can get this online discounted, obviously, through Fortress Miniatures and Games, one of the sponsors of the channel. When he gets it, I imagine he'll probably have it between $18 and $20, would be my guess, but you have to check it out on his website for the official price, because it's not up yet. That said, MSRP, I believe, is $24.99, and I imagine that's not going to be a terrible price for most people who want the contents. I also think that it's probably going to be even better value when you get it discounted. So that said, let's go ahead and take a quick peek at this, open up, and look at the contents. Now, first and foremost, you don't have to pop this open with a knife, which is what I was about to do. I was ready to rip this open, but it comes with this nice little resealable package here, kind of similar to what you might see from the premium record sheets. So unfortunately, if you were wanting to tear into this, I suppose you could, but I think keeping it resealable has probably got some value or merit to it. So let's go ahead and pull these contents out, and see what we've got here. So pretty basic kind of packaging. Not that it's going to matter much because it's all going to get tossed anyway. It's kind of got a picture of the contents here, which is pretty cool. The thing that I am most excited about from this is the stuff in here that is not in the Alpha Strike box. Some of the stuff is going to be duplicates from the Alpha Strike box. Some of it is not, and that is what's exciting. And there you go, official MSRP. So first things first, we're going to get another full set of the cardstock / kind of cardboard buildings from the Alpha Strike box. I'll quickly show these to you. We're not going to build them. If you want to see something a little bit more in depth, I've got some videos with these being played with, and in the Alpha Strike box unboxing, I showcase these as well. Big shout out to Mr. Randall Bills from Catalyst Game Labs. I was able to get a copy of that box early, so I did the unboxings, I painted the minis, and played the scenarios in there, and that's how I got my Jade Falcons, as well as my Northwind Highlanders. So, got our buildings here. I don't think that these are the best thing for Wargaming or Alpha Strike, but I do think that they are very good for the value. For players who are on a budget, Battletech Alpha Strike in particular is a very affordable wargame. And if you're not trying to spend a bunch of money, this is a good way to get some nice 3D elements on your table without having to spend a lot of money. It's not going to break the bank. Is it going to be as immersive as some of the other nicer 3D printed stuff? No. But is it going to do the job? Yes. And one of the major benefits of this is it's lightweight, reasonably durable, but I wouldn't smash these, obviously, because they're thin. But the really cool thing is that they're pre-colored, so it helps with immersion, even though they're just fancy boxes. So I don't think these are a bad thing. I think having two sets is good for me, especially for trying to run demo games and things of that nature. Having extras of these is good, especially as like a travel set of terrain. So, but again, I'm not going to build these. We're just going to try and get these back in the package here and see if we can manage that. And we mostly did. I don't think I got it back in there the exact same way. I think it was in the other direction, but good enough for Mech Warrior Wood. So looking at our token sheet here, this is another copy paste from the Alpha Strike box set. So we've got our objective markers, various TMM tokens, which is pretty good for people who are just getting into the hobby who may not have a brick of dice. But I think for the average gamer who's been into wargaming for any length of time, they probably have some dice representation to do this. But this is nice if you don't have them. Not terrible, especially if you're playing with mechs and you know what your TMM is going to be. You could just have a handful of these and you know what you're going to need. And then if you're jumping, which is probably not your whole force, you just have a couple of jump tokens and you're good. Hold down doesn't come up very often, which is probably why there's not a bunch of those tokens. Blast marker here, and the trees, which I think are really good. Even though they're cardboard, it's nice to have a physical representation. So that is really nice, and this is really nice cardstock. One thing that you may have seen some of my videos with the trees, is they have a hard time staying together. They do work, but a little dab of glue, I'd probably use like PVA glue, so Elmer's glue. Get those in place, put some of that on, get them in place, and let them dry, and that'll give you a nice hard adhesive there, or bond, to help prevent them from falling apart. The downside is then you're not going to be able to take them back apart. That's a trade-off. Do you want them to flat pack for storage and over time get wear and tear from constantly going back and forth, connecting? Or do you want to have them rigid once they're bonded so that they don't come apart when you're playing? I think that the not coming apart might be useful, but being able to flat pack them might be good for you. It looks like we've got some more trees here. This I do not believe was in the Alpha Strike box because these trees here do not look familiar, so it looks like we've got some other variations, which is nice for immersion. I think it's good, adds to the value, and that is pretty dang sweet. That's really nice. It's one of the things that's really hard to replicate on the tabletop. When you're buying 3D terrain elements, the organic stuff is not very easy. So here is something else that we've got that is new. We've got a strafing run template, which if you follow me at DRD, we make a strafing and blast template set for both Ares and Fortress Miniatures and games. We've got a movement widget here with various stats on here, just basic stuff if you don't remember, which is pretty good. I've got a pretty cool widget that we made at work. Doesn't have this stuff on it, but let me grab it and I'll show it to you. I was tinkering around with trying to do some graphic design using the Irby logo that Austin did for me, and I was playing around with Inkscape, and we made a widget that will either be sold or be a Patreon item. In either case, some people will be able to get their hands on it. Super adorable with the herbs. We've got 4-inch, 1-inch, 2-inch, 6-inch. So basic movements for wargaming. The stats on here are useful, but if you've played Alpha Strike long enough, you probably have most of this memorized and know. So having a handy dandy widget that supports my channel is also cool, and it's got an adorable quote here. It says, "I'm an unstoppable death machine, fear me, pew pew pew." So my little herbs, adorable, and that might be the only time you hear me do that voice, but I thought it would be funny. So back to the unboxing here. One of the core benefits of this, I think, not so much this. This is a very niche thing. It's good to have, but it's not going to come up very often. These are super helpful, and these were a much missed aspect from the Alpha Strike box that I wish was there. I'm not sure what they could have cut to put these in, but I think one of the core issues with the Alpha Strike box is you had trees, but you didn't have an actual 3D footprint for them to go in. So I did a video quickly talking about what you might do to make these more useful. I made some base plates for them at work, real basic, just they look green. It looks better than just having the trees standard, but what it does is it sets a footprint. So you know whether there's a 3D tree or not, you know the perimeter of the tree, so you know when your line of fire is going through it, and you know if you're walking through it. Whereas if you put trees on the table and you have to visualize a triangle or a perimeter, and you and your opponent argue about it, whatever, or can't quite figure it out, like, I think the line goes here, I think the line goes there, I think there's a tree here. This eliminates all that, and then the 3D tree element that's on it is more just for immersion, and when you're moving models, just move the trees around, because the footprint's what matters. The tree 3D element is just to remind you there's trees and look cool on the table. So this is a really nice thing that was added to this box, and it looks really slick. I dig that. And one of the nice things with the organic stuff like this is it's flat, so it's infinitely playable. Unfortunately, with hills and some other elements, it becomes very difficult for your models to balance and so forth. So this flat stuff is really good. The 3D buildings and stuff are very nice. But when it comes to things like this, the flat stuff just makes it so much easier. So I really do like that myself. And it looks like we got 2 of the large footprints, and we got 2... ooh, these aren't trees. These are like rough terrain. That's nice, too. What a nice extra feature. I didn't know that was in here. Very cool. They're small ones. They could add some other elements like this, but it's nice because you get, again, introducing more options to your play area, more rules to utilize because rough terrain doesn't come up often. So that's nice. Got your large blast template to go with the small one in the strafe run. Another movement widget here. Pretty nice. A couple other sets of tokens that are pretty niche. The Narc token doesn't come up often, but it's nice. Again, you only get a couple of those. The C3 tokens for Master Slave, which I think this is actually good. This doesn't come up often because not a lot of people do it, but if you do C3, it's very complicated, at least more complicated than basic gaming. You don't have to be Einstein to do it, or Zach Galifianakis from Hangover. But generally, if you play C3, and you're new to it, it can be difficult. If you play C3 and you're not new to it, you typically know it, and these will be helpful for helping you keep track, as well as helping keep track if you're new. But if you are a veteran of using C3 and your opponent is not familiar with it, these tokens will not only help you, but help your opponent visualize what it is you're doing so they understand. I find C3 often to be more hassle than it's worth. Not that it isn't useful and good in the game, but it bogs down the mechanics. You have to check for stuff. You got to see if someone's got what is it, beagle probes or whatever to cut it off and whatnot. And it's a whole extra layer of the game that if you want to do it, choose to do it. But if you're going to do it, make sure you read the rules, because there's a good chance your opponent, if they are a newer player, or even if they're a veteran like myself, they might not have encountered it much, and they may be confused. So if you're going to do that, these tokens are helpful, and it also help you explain to your opponent what's going on. Next up here, we have one of the more. There we go, another one. So we got another set of trees here. Footprint, that's cool. What does that put us at? 2 large and kind of a medium footprint. Some more tokens here. And so forth, but this is something that I think was direly needed again. Wasn't in the Alpha Strike box. I couldn't expect them to put everything in the Alpha Strike box, so I understand why we didn't. I think the tree templates, one extra sheet of that would have been good. Pay an extra couple bucks or something to have that. That would have made the trees they did include more useful. I understand why the water wasn't included, but I'm glad it's in here, because this is, again, a feature that's hard to replicate without spending a bunch of money on terrain features, which, you know, for me, if you're going to buy terrain features, I think the 3D elements are better. The water elements from Battlefield in Box are really good, but you might want to spend your money on stuff that's more affordable for a similar look. This is dirt cheap for what it counts as. It looks good, and it's great. I also have a whole bunch of the rivers and water stuff from Battlefield in Box. It's perfect, but if you're a gamer on a budget, this is going to do you just fine, and it's going to introduce this water element to your tabletops, which, if you're not familiar with it, if you're in water, generally it counts as depth 1 as a standard, which means if you're a battle mech in it, you're automatically getting your obscurity from standing in the water, so the +1 basically when you're getting shot at, and then, you know, it gives you the cooling of 1 heat every turn, which is really nice. These tokens here I've not ever seen. Altitude low. Oh, okay. I also missed the stealth before. So I'm assuming this is for your VTOLs for determining what height you're cruising at. Okay, that tracks. I don't use a lot of VTOLs, so that makes more sense. I thought it was like trying to determine like elevation of your terrain. I was going to be like, that's weird. Yeah, so VTOLs. Stealth token, which is there's only a couple, I think. Yeah, there's one other sheet that had it. I don't think the other ones did. Yeah, so we've got 2 stealth tokens. We've got 2 narc tokens. It's something that not a lot of units have, so when they do have a token to remind yourself and your opponent is pretty nice. But again, they didn't give you a whole bunch because it's not going to come up as often, which I think is smart. Give us more of the tokens we're going to use more frequently. So here we go. Woods, which is cool. A little bit more remnants of the C3, getting that stuck in there where they could fit it. Roads. I hope I didn't say woods a second ago, but roads. That's pretty cool. Pretty limited. You don't have a whole lot. I think this might be one of those where like buying multiples of this box might be useful if you want the roads. Nice little feature to have, especially if you have them like terminate where the rubble is. So like the road's been destroyed or something. That would be cool. If you want to use the rules for the movement on the road, you know, skidding and so forth, it's nice to have. Extra little feature. I'll probably just use this occasionally as just to spice up the table. I usually don't get bogged down with too many of the special rules, especially if I'm filming, because it slows down the game. I also play a lot with the mechanics that I'm going to encounter when I go to Southern Assault, and they don't use the rules for the road, so I don't play with those. But if you want to, it's cool, and if not, just put them on your table, and you just have it as set dressing. The other tokens we got here, more altitude stuff, and then elevation. Maybe this one's different. I can't. Is there like a sheet that explains these? No. Okay, so I think maybe for this might be for maybe defining a piece of terrain if you're unsure, because the tokens for you got altitude low, altitude medium, altitude. There's no high. Okay, so maybe it's just maybe if you're maybe there's not a high. I don't know. I need to look that up for VTOLs, because I've never actually used them. I've seen people use them, but typically it's not come up for me. Because I thought they went in increments of 1 inch. So yeah, you were paying for dropping down. I don't know what altitude, medium, and high is, unless there's a bonus for being high versus medium and low, and there's a set inches or something. Maybe if someone in the comments is more familiar with that, you can fill me in, and then I'll know something, and I'll learn from you, which is awesome. But yeah, so I'm assuming maybe the elevation here is to define a piece of terrain that you're unsure of, and you know what inches you would be paying to go up and down. That might be what that's for, but I'm not exactly sure, because it's not the same color as these, so I don't imagine that it is for your VTOL. So that would be my guess. Before we get to these, worth mentioning. Oh, that pop. Oh, interesting. Okay, I should have flipped these over. Oh, I was getting ready to talk about the thickness of these because it's a nice thick, kind of nice heavy duty cardstock, so it should stand up reasonably well for a length of time. Obviously, this is going to be a papery kind of material, so it will fray and can get bent. But for the price, you know what you're paying for. It's not too bad. Also, this is elevation 2 on the backs of the C3. We're going to go back over and flip all these over, folks, because I didn't even think to look at the other side. But as a happenstance, I saw, and there's the altitude highs. There we go, in elevation 2. Yeah, so maybe that's defining terrains. But I didn't realize there was different color roads. That's actually nice. I didn't think to check to see if those were double-sided. Let's go back through these other ones real quick. So we had our water, our other tokens, and that one tree. Oh, okay, so it's like lava or like some other kind of chemical water, different altitudes spotted. Okay, so that's good. Spotter token, that's nice. What's Intim? I don't know. Intimidated. Oh, maybe it is intimidated. That is a PSA. There's something for intimidated. Maybe there's that. Oh, that's cool. So like this will, I didn't, man, that's so, I'm glad I flipped these over because where's that piece of paper? The back here was not very obvious that these were double-sided. So very cool. That adds value too. So if you buy 2 sets, you could run one side and one the other if you want to mix and match. Especially with like the trees, because you could have like a fall setting and have some green and some kind of ones that are different color. That's nice. That adds value though and helps spice up your table. So for the price of one set of things, you get 2 different looks. So every time you play, you could spice it up a little bit, so it's not samey. I think that adds value. That's pretty cool. I think the spotted token is super useful because if you're using indirect fire, you're going to be spotting. So having a token to put down and remember who spotted who, or who has been spotted. So let's flip this one over. So a different color rubble. Oh, that's badass. Okay. Oh, that's freaking awesome. Nice. So that's fantastic, folks. So your blast templates are going to be used very infrequently, and I feel like this is one of those, like, if you're not going to use your blast template because you're not bringing a unit with artillery or blast, they made it to where you could flip it over and use it as a piece of terrain. How freaking awesome is that? I didn't even see that. That's really cool. It could be like an objective, a base or something, or maybe call it if you're walking through like rough terrain because you're having to navigate the base just to make it simple. Well, if you're walking through, the mech's being cautious not to step on stuff, so it's slowed down. Or maybe if your line of fire goes through, you're shooting through the base, so maybe you and your opponent agree on a house rule that it's like cover. Or maybe this is some type of objective where like you want to hold it, but if you fire through it or near it, there's a chance you hit it, and you have a certain number of HP or something you assign to it. That's really cool. Let's see the other sheet. And okay, yeah, this is pretty awesome too. I just saw it when I was picking it up. So when we flip this, look at that. We get a runway. How freaking cool. So that can go with like the little base here. That's awesome. And then the different colored trees. Very cool. Yeah, yeah, making the templates useful when you're not using them, or you're not going to be using those specific rules. That's slick. Good job, Catalyst. That's slick. Let's check this last one out too. Oh, nice. So all these tokens are double-sided. So standstill, sprint. Got your additional jumps, immobile. This template doesn't have a double side. Yeah, that's whatever. It's not a big deal. And then the objectives look different on both sides. So maybe if you're playing, you have like a claimed, unclaimed type thing, or you just want a different look. Actually, oh, okay, I see. There's D, E, F. Okay, they're the same on both sides. Never mind. I thought you flipped them. They were a different letter. Okay. Cool. And the trees are obviously going to be the same on both sides. So that's going to bring us to the last sheets here, which I think add some amazing value to this. Quick reference sheets when you play the game. These are in the book, and you look at these all the time. Having this nice stock, you didn't have to laminate, comes out. These are printouts. I wish something. Ooh, there is something like this in Now Strike book. Sorry, I wish this was easily accessible before now, outside of buying that box rather. So now you've got it. You reference this page all the time. I think. Oh yeah, fantastic. I was getting ready to say I wish the page numbers were listed. They're up here. So if you have the rulebook, you know what page to reference for this. If you need to get in there and find some minutia that is not covered, that's very nice. Cool. So all this is like your basic stuff that you're going to need to play. Most of this you don't need all the time. It's just a niche case if it's specific and you need to reference it. But otherwise, typically you're probably going to know most of this because you're using it. See, that is pretty cool. And then I use this page right here with some frequency when we're trying to, because if I forget like what the rear arc is, or I'm trying to explain something like rear arc and then firing arc. So like some people think, oh, I'm in your rear, and it's like, no, you're behind me, so I can't fire at you. The rear is a cone, right? So like sometimes people like get confused where they think the front arc is also a cone. It's not. Rear arc, you're firing specifically into the rear, and this one is you're in my rear line, and I can only fire in the front. So that's a little confusing. If you're not familiar, once you know, it's not too bad. Crit table, again, I like that it's got the page numbers that are relevant, and we reference this all the time, so this is good. And this one, the motive table, people forget this one very frequently, so that is really nice to have for the vehicles. Got our artillery building reference sheet, that's nice. Attack damage table, so or for physical stuff, so very cool. Nice, I dig that. And then reference sheet, so... Okay, so this is your basically going to be your pilot special abilities. This doesn't come up often, so you'll probably have this sheet in your backpack and won't pull it out often unless you're using the PSAs. Some people do. I don't use them often because the costs, they're fine if you agree with your opponent how many points you're both allowed to spend on PSAs, but some of these are really brutal. Let me see if I can find the one that I like, and yeah, here it is. Let me just read this real quick. Range mastery or master, two cost, right? Unit swaps normal range modifier for medium, long, or extended or extreme range with short. So like that is like you can basically take your medium range and flip it to where it's short range, and your medium range is now +0 instead of +2, which means if they're in your face, it's a little harder for you to hit. But when Alpha Strike, at least when you're playing on a 4x4, is predominantly at medium range because you're gonna be doing a lot of shots there, and it's reasonably easy to keep someone outside of 6 inches from you. That's pretty good, and then some of these other ones. Are just for the point cost. Like that one's, I feel like that's a shoe-in. I think if people use PSAs, that one's so common to take. And then over here, this is useful. They couldn't put the actual rule on here for what they do, but I think it's probably assumed that if you have Alpha Strike, or you're playing Alpha Strike, you probably have the book. So if you're not sure about a special ability, let's say HT, because heat comes up frequently. We go find HT. Tells you HT stands for heat, tells you what page to find the rules on. This is pretty good because this is basically an index in your hand, and if you're unsure about a special rule, you flip it, go here real quick, bring up the page in your book, which is probably sitting on your table right next to you, and that is super useful. So yeah, I really dig this. I think for 25, some people will think it's a little bit pricey. I think for me, it's not bad. I think it adds value. The Battletech community, I think sometimes the opinions on values vary from person to person pretty substantially compared to like 40K, where people are just used to crazy prices. I think if anyone's going to balk at this price, they're going to say, well, I paid 25 for this, but a Force Pack costs this, or a Alpha Strike box costs that, and why'd I pay this much? But it is what it is. You're probably going to buy this once, and you're going to get infinite, I want to say infinite, but a seemingly uncountable amount of games played on this terrain in these features before they start to be too worn out to be useful. Same with the tokens. These buildings, I think, are going to go down way before these do. So I like it. I think at $24.99 or $25, this is a great auto pickup, especially just for these things in those sheets. It's not bad. But if you're going to pick it up from Bobby over at Fortress, for example, and you get probably 20% off, I imagine. I bet that's probably what it's going to do. I bet he's got this for $18 to $20. Saving a few dollars is really good, and it makes this even more of a value add. If you have other terrain features, this might not necessarily be for you. If you've got water features from like Battlefield in a Box, for example, which I'm a big fan of. I know I was talking about like this stuff's really good for the price. If money isn't something you're super concerned with, the water features from Battlefield in a Box are really good, so are their trees. But if you're on a budget, while this might not be super cheap, relative to buying multiple boxes of trees and water features that are 3D and a little bit more premium, you buy this once and you've got enough for a table if you have other terrain to scatter in, especially with these buildings, and you can upgrade as you go. So I think this is a pretty good pickup. If you are getting into Alpha Strike and you are new and want to keep things on a budget and have some terrain, you could pick up your Alpha Strike rulebook, your Alpha Strike box, and this, and you could just not spend any more money if you wanted to, especially if you had like a green felt mat rolled out to play on, so you don't have to buy neoprene, and you've kept your investment low, and you have enough for you and your opponent to play with and get a good, reasonable amount of replayable games with varied terrain features. So yeah, I think that is pretty cool, pretty good. That said, folks, I think that's going to conclude our review of this. I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to use especially the water and the tree features in my games. But as always, if I do not sign off today, you know what'll happen. I'll sit here and ramble. If you enjoyed this, sound off in the comments below. If you didn't also sound off, let me know your thoughts, good, bad, or otherwise. I'd love to know what you're interested in, and if you think this is not for you, not a value, what side of the fence are you on? Is it just too expensive, or you would rather spend that money plus more on premium stuff? Or is it a good value for you? Or maybe it's a little expensive, but the value is there because you don't want to spend more on premium stuff. Like, where do you land? What are your thoughts? If you pick this up, what do you think? Sign up in the comments below. Let's get a discussion going. Your opinions are not wrong, even if I think I'm pretty right most of the time. If this isn't for you, that's perfectly fine. But if it isn't, I'd love to know why. Just because I'd be curious to know. If I had to say one thing negative, for me, as the guy who works at a terrain manufacturer here, I'm rambling. You guys know what's up. These buildings, I think, are a good stopgap. I think the cardstock terrain features are better. I think this is the first thing I would replace if it was me. I think this stuff is more useful. This stuff is going to get, I think, bent and messed up faster than the cardstock. I don't think that's necessarily a deal breaker for me, but I do think if I found fault, it would be these. If you look at other companies that have some cardstock terrain, like Infinity, for example, or I think Dropfleet might be this stuff, or Drop Zone. But Infinity has some cardstock stuff that makes similar kind of buildings, but out of this type of material down here, right? That's way more durable. I think that would have been good. It would have jacked up the price, and you'd have to put a little bit more effort into like building the stuff, which is not that bad because I've built some of that Infinity stuff too. I think that would be a bit more premium than these, but I think to keep prices down, especially from people who are new to the hobby and new to the game, new to the universe, this is not bad. I just think most players, this is going to be a stopgap. If they keep up with the game, they'll probably buy something to replace these. So I do think it is good in general, but if I had to have a negative, it would be that. That said, folks, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. As always, keep painting your models, keep rolling your dice, keep playing your games, and I will catch you guys next time.